plastic management in the tourism sector. So I'm Geneviève Alain. I'm Circular Economy Project Manager at Ecoris, which is a Belgian consultancy firm focusing on sustainability and partner of the European project Centaur. Today we will focus on how to tackle the plastic issue and find solutions in this regard in the sector. We will have 3 guests presenting how to avoid single-use plastic products, choose for a truly sustainable alternative, and embark your staff in the process. So the first presentation will be made by Claire Charles from BMed, a Monegasque association acting to prevent plastic pollution in the Mediterranean. So welcome, Claire, and thank you. She will tell us about their experience and input in a pilot project with the Hotel Intercontinental in Marseille, Hôtel Dieu. Next, we will have Elodie Solal from consultancy, welcome as well, who supported BMed in the project, and she will tell us a few words about life cycle analysis and the best way to choose alternatives to plastic. And last but not least, we will have Manon Sénéchal from Enough Plastic, who will tell us how to find sustainable suppliers and embark your team and to change procedures and habits. We will run these 3 presentations in a row. If you have questions for one of the speakers, please write them down in the chat, and we will have a 10 to 15-minute time at the end of the 3 presentations to answer some of these questions. So this meeting will also be recorded and will be available afterwards on the Centaur website. But before we dive into these 3 presentations, let's talk a little bit about Centaur. So Centaur is a 3-year European-funded project that started in September 2020 and operates in 5 countries, namely Italy, Spain, Greece, Moldova, and North Macedonia. It aims to accelerate the uptake of sustainable and circular solutions of SMEs in the tourism sector by developing new skills and competencies through capacity building. For example, on the website circulartourism.eu, you can find practical handbooks, best practices, database, free online courses, forums to exchange ideas, and to acquire new knowledge on circularity in the tourism industry. So the second aim also of the project is to develop local ecosystem of sustainable and circular tourism SMEs. So in the 5 countries where we operate, a circular tourism economy facilitator has been coaching and training a set of SMEs to support them implementing circular strategies. So we also facilitate knowledge transfer between these SMEs through study visits, webinars like today, and presentations. So the circular transition in the industry can be tackled through different lenses. Nowadays, a strong focus lays on energy efficiency and the shift to renewables to ensure the resilience of the sector. But let's not forget that the other key dimensions include also the challenge of the plastic or food waste or the development of collaborative practices to intensify the use of materials. More specifically, since 2021, the EU has banned several single-use items, and it is important to know how to manage this change. Therefore, let me welcome our first speaker, Claire, who will talk about their initiative in the Mediterranean and their pilot project with the Intercontinental Hôtel Dieu in Marseille.
Thanks a lot, Geneviève, and good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here and to speak with all those Mediterranean SMEs, because I represent Beyond Plastic Med, which is, let me share my screen to begin my presentation. So I represent Beyond Plastic Med, which is an NGO based in Monaco, who aims to fight against plastic pollution in the Mediterranean. So this regional scope of the Centaur project really speaks with us. And we are convinced that the reduction of the source of the pollution is crucial to tackle this pollution, as well as working hand in hand with the private sector. So this webinar and this opportunity to exchange with you is very aligned with our activities. What we do in the daily basis is that we fund up to 10, between 10 and 15 organizations each year with grants up to 10,000 euros to finance projects that fight plastic pollution around the Mediterranean. We also run, and that's what we're going to talk about today, we also run a business club since 2020 that gather as well companies, bigger or smaller, a scientific committee, and the civil society. And the aim is to make everybody talk about the important plastic pollution issues that they encounter to tackle those and to try to find the best solution we can to this plastic pollution matter. And within this club, we have this discussion on certain topic, but we also run pilot projects, which is a test of the solution we came up with. And we are going to present you today the result of the first one. So the first pilot project that we ran, as Geneviève said, was at the Intercontinental Marseille Hôtel Dieu, which is a 5-star hotel in the south of France. And we worked with them it was nearly a year to tackle and to reduce the plastic, the single-use plastic they had in the hotel. So we targeted 18 products, and with them and the help of the other companies of the club and the scientific committee of the club, we came with the solution we thought they were best, and we implemented in a test phase. I think I'm going to dive in right now and present you the alternatives we came up with. So at the reception first, there was a children welcome kit, to welcome the child that stay in the hotel. And there was a little bags of sweets and bowls and puzzle and a kite, and all of this was wrapped in plastic. And so we tried the alternative solution with loose sweets in some candy jar dispenser at the reception. They also switched all the little games with coloring booklets, crayons, wooden crayons, and a tote bag. And maybe we will come back to that later, but that's just to give you a quick hint on what was implemented. And then we also went to the food and drink sector of the hotel, as we had plastic tea bag, the sugar bags that was wrapped in milk. In the rooms we had, maybe that speaks with you, milk capsule and hot chocolate capsules as well. And for that, we found some other alternatives. Some of them were, it was necessary to change the process. For example, the loose tea at the restaurant, it was a little bit different. At the breakfast buffet, we had sugar bowls instead of little individual dose of sugar. And then we also changed the milk and the hot chocolates, which was available in the rooms, and now it's only available on room service. And it's fresh milk and real hot chocolates made especially for the clients. Then I'll go a little bit more quickly on the bathroom amenities that were available in each rooms. And we worked as well on the secondary wrapping elements because everything that was wrapped in plastic has been suppressed, and it is now in individual cardboard box. But what really helped as well, the reduction of the plastic consumption and the consumption of those articles, is to put all of this on request only. And how we came with those alternatives and solutions is that we followed and we built a methodology on in 6 stages that we hope will work as well for as many hotels as possible. And that's first, we defined where we were in the hotel. I mean, how many plastic were used, and we did the diagnosis for every single-use plastic in the hotel. And we are fully conscious that it's not possible to change everything at once and on the same period of time. It takes time. The changes takes time, and it has to be thought about. So that's why the second stage is prioritizing which single-use plastic we want to tackle first. I'll come back to that later, but you will have a lot of opportunities to go further and to go more in details in all of this methodology, and I'll go back to that, I think, at the end of the webinar. Then the next step is to look at all the options you have for the single-use plastic you've identified, and to look at all the options, all the alternatives. It could be to reduce the amount of plastic articles you have or you put at disposal of the clients. It could be to replace with material alternatives, and it could be sometimes as simple as removing the articles from what you offer to the client. It sounds scary, but trust me, it's a lot of the time it's clearly accepted. Then when you have a look at all of these options, you have to choose which one is best regarding your own criteria, and what my colleague will speak to you just in a minute. It's choosing what's best as well for the environment. And the test phase that we run at the Intercontinental, and that we suggest you can do the same, is you're not diving right away in implementing definitely those alternatives you suggested. You can test first, for example, a period of 3 months, the solution, and then decide what's best for you and for the hotel regarding indicators that we gather all around the duration of the project. So as I mentioned, you have a lot of opportunities, and I will speak about that a little bit more in detail at the end of the webinar, but we suggest that you can collect that data all around the process to be able to make the best informed decision when you arrive at the end of the test. And so the aim of today is to focus on certain stages and certain aspects of this process and of the pilot project, to give you hints and tips of the best solution we encountered during the project in Marseille. So I'm going to give the floor to my colleague Elodie Selal from Consultancies, and she will speak to you a bit more of the environmental analysis.
Yeah, thank you very much, Claire. So as Claire explained to you, this step comes right after the prioritization of the plastic that we wanted to focus on so it was Manon and Francois from Enough Plastic who were in charge of looking for all those alternatives. And so there's a really wide range of alternatives possible. And the question you want to ask yourself is, how do I choose the correct solution? And part of the answer is actually looking at what's best for the environment. Because if we want to reduce plastic or single-use plastic use in the hotel, we do not want to do this at any cost. We do not want to delete plastic but harm more the environment or dramatically increase our CO2 emission because the alternative we have may be not in plastic but in some other material that emits more CO2 when it's produced. So we want to make sure that we do not do any negative impact transfer on the environment when we choose the alternative for this single-use plastic. So how do we do this? We use screening LCA, so that's a simplified life cycle analysis. And we did this, we did not do this ourselves. We were accompanied by experts from the INSAM, so that's their job to actually study the life cycle analysis of projects. And they were able to give us hints and to direct us into the right direction, so that we choose the right alternative from an environmental point of view. So maybe I can give you just 2 examples to make everything a bit more clearer. So one of the solutions that we can be presented when we're looking for alternatives to single-use plastic, which plastic in general, is biosourced plastic. So it's on the slide, it's called polylactic acid, that's PLA. And so it's biosourced and biodegradable plastic. But this does not actually mean that its environmental impact is necessarily better than a petroleum-based plastic. This needs to be checked. And when we actually went in to check this on the screen you have the toothbrush, what we found out was that for the toothbrush, the petroleum-based plastic was actually better, or was better than switching to a biodegradable plastic, and that the best option was the wooden toothbrush, but we weren't able to put that in place because it was quite costly alternative. So we decided to put that on demand, and I'll tell you a bit more about this later on in this project. But another example is that, for example, switching from a single-use plastic that is non-recyclable to a single-use plastic that is recyclable is good, but it's good only if you actually are able to separate this recyclable waste in order for it to be recycled in the end. So you have to actually do 2 actions instead of just one. You have to select a product that is recyclable, and you have to put in the waste separation solution in the hotel so that this waste will be collected, sorted, and then recycled in the end. So this environmental analysis was actually one of the big strengths of the project that allowed us for the project to be robust, and that we did not do any transfer of impact, and to have, good results for the environment, and to make sure that we did not have more impact by switching to non-plastic alternatives. And that's it for the zoom on the environmental analysis, and I'll be glad to answer your questions at the end.
Thanks a lot, Elodie. And of course, yes, you can ask questions at the end of the webinar, no worries. And now I will let the floor to Manon from Enough Plastic, and she will tell us a little bit more about the relation with the supplier and what's the best tips to make those changes.
Thank you, Claire, and thank you everyone for being here this morning. So you've understood it. One of the crucial part of a plastic reduction project is to find the most sustainable alternatives, and also to identify the most relevant suppliers that meet your hotel's requirements. So the way we proceeded with Intercontinental Marseille was First, to benchmark all of the possible alternatives that could enable the hotel to either eliminate, reduce, or replace the identified single-use plastic items and packaging that Claire shared already. So we sourced on average around 5 to 6 alternatives per product, to give you an idea, from elimination options to single-use options to reusable and bulk alternative solutions. And we organized a meeting with the management team to select the ones that made the most sense with the context of the InterContinental Marseille, based on their requirements of safety, quality, their standards of luxury, because they are a 5-star hotel. At this stage, to guide the management team in the decision process, we had already sourced out a few suppliers for each alternative solution, highlighting some of their locations, their price ranges, to very much guide them in the understanding of which suppliers they would be able to choose behind these alternative solutions. So once we had identified possible alternatives, the second step is to identify the right suppliers to each one. So the way we identified them was to search a lot in industry alliances reports, networks, a lot online through environmental media that were gathering data and solutions. At Enough Plastic, we also have been aggregating for the last few years about 800 suppliers worldwide, providing single-use plastic alternatives, but also reusable models that we very much capitalized on for this project, at least, and trying to understand all of the main emerging trends and innovations in the field to provide the hotel with the best of our knowledge. We also had a lot of help from the Collège d'Entreprise that was mentioned by Claire, which were an aggregation of companies in France, also potentially able to provide solutions for the hospitality industry, and they very much supported in this research. And once we had identified interesting suppliers, the important part was also shared by LOD, which was to lead an environmental analysis, but also an economic one, to make sure that the suppliers that are selected in the end are as local as possible, with manufacturing plants locally around the hotel. That was the main reason to drive the environmental impacts down. And the second analysis was the economic one. So to validate the exact cost of these alternatives, we've led a lot of interviews with all of the suppliers that we had identified. Usually hotels think that existing alternatives to single-use plastics are more expensive than their equivalent in single-use plastic, which is the case, but not always. If you analyze all of the cost life cycle of the alternatives, sometimes you realize that it can bring savings to the sector. And to give you 2 examples, shifting to bulk alternatives for tea, sugar, and milk enabled the hotel to save 60 to 90% of the cost compared to the equivalent single-use doses, which is which is quite intense. And the second example is that putting the amenities on demand enabled to save 50% of the initial costs as well. Also because the demand was much less than putting amenities in every room. So once we have validated the environmental and economic viability of the suppliers, before the official launch of the trial period, what I also wanted to highlight is that we ordered a few samples of each supplier's items, and we trialed them in the hotel supply chain. And that's where we realized that some of the suppliers alternative solutions didn't very much fit to the hotel's operations particularly. One key example was the cover that was used for glasses, for juice glasses that were brought in the room service channel. They were used to cover the juice when during the transport to the room. And in the end, the solution identified didn't very much fit the standards that were hoped by the hotel. So it wasn't deployed in the end in the trial phase. And before the official launch of the trial period, we also had set up all of the new logistical protocols to support the hotels in this operational transition, because most of the alternatives identified didn't have the same processes to be deployed. And to finish on this supplier aspect, an estimated time for all this work for Intercontinental Marseille, it took about a month for this research and all of the decision making by management. Depending, of course, on the size of your hotel and the operations, it may vary. So that's about it for the timing. And something that we also realized to finish on this aspect was that it's also interesting sometimes to co-create solutions with your actual and current suppliers that can help overcome some of the challenges. It's not always the solution to find new ones and to impact your order protocols. And this, we saw it clearly in the children's kit, where one supplier was able, through co-creation, to eliminate the single-use plastic wrapping around a plastic toy, and convert it to a wood toy. So that's for the suppliers. I also wanted to share a few learnings from the training part of the project. The formats that we used are threefold. We did a first 2-hour online session with all of the management and head of staff's team to present them in detail the hotel's approach and the objectives, and also the alternatives that were chosen, to give them a full understanding of the scope of the project. And we've highlighted the new protocols for all of the heads of staff, so that they could ensure the success of managing the changes to their team, with their teams. The second format was a 1-day training that's on the picture that you see right here, destined to all of the staff members of the hotel. So the training took place in the cafeteria area where the staff had dinner and lunch. So it was a very relevant spot because all the teams passed through this place all day when they had a break. Or in between their shifts. So it enabled us to capture most of the staff working there and raise their awareness on the project to make them the first ambassadors of this program. And the last format was to set up a training flyer that we gave to all staff members during this 1-day training, detailing them what we had shared orally with them during the training. So that was it for the format. The objectives of these different training materials and formats was very much to maximize commitment from staff, enable them to understand the changes that were going to be made within the hotel, and of course ensure the success of the project within the hotel. The way we structured the content is also maybe something that is interesting to you. We structured it hand in hand with the operational and marketing director of the Intercontinental Marseille, and the objectives were very clear to them. They wanted to raise awareness among their teams with regards to the transition to zero plastic approach. They wanted to present the products involved in the pilot project and the alternatives that were chosen. So that's also why we had them all on the table that you see here. They wanted us to respond to questions that were coming from staff about the projects, and to take on board their opinions, their expectations, their concerns, to be sure that this project addresses them in the best way. We faced a few issues. It's also the objective of this webinar, on the training side. Particularly, they highlighted that the turnover was an issue in some of their teams, particularly the restaurant and the restaurant teams, where there were a lot of short-term contracts. So it required the hotel to train its staff on the new procedures and protocols constantly. So that was something that the hotel kept in mind. And a key success factor for this challenge was very much to work hand in hand with the different teams, particularly the head of staffs supporting their teams in all of this change process. So I think in my due time, it's what I can share. I'm happy to answer also upcoming questions at the end of the webinar.
Thanks a lot, Manon. And yes, I hope this will be very helpful to you, and do not hesitate to ask questions again. All of this work implemented with the teams, the hotel, and the business club was to implement a trial phase of 3 months. And we weren't really sure what will come next. But the results of the trial phase were very optimistic, and we reduced the production of waste in mass by 78%, and we prevented about 165 kilograms of plastic within 3 months. And what we can mention as well is that the 3 months trial phase was from June to September, so right in the middle of a high touristic season. So that's also an indicator for us that the project went well, because all the changes of this were sustainable as well for the staff. Because the return we have from the staff member is that they were very involved, and those changes of process also saved them times. For example, when you don't replace in every room at every change of clients and the amenities of the bathroom amenities, in the end you save time. The clients were also as happy as they were before. We paid very much attention to this, because this is a luxury hotel, and they were very worried about certain products not available anymore in the rooms. We had to work on this to be able to test it, but the results are shown that the clients were very happy as well with the stay, and some clients even choose the Intercontinental Marseille Hotel Dieu for their ecological engagement and their project with the reduction of plastic. And lastly, the costs were also a very big positive result for the hotel, because they invested around 4,800 euros in the different alternatives. But in 3 months, they made 5,200 euros of saving with the new process and the new alternatives implemented. So this is a long term, this is sustainable in the long term, and within 3 months they reimbursed what they invested for the reusable alternatives. So that's for the results of the general trial phase, but Elodie is going to speak to you a bit more about what putting on demand some product means, and what the results you can expect from this.
Yeah, and we wanted to do this as this little focus, because we think that from our experience in the Intercontinental Hotel, this is one of our quick wins, because it was something that it was hard to convince the hotel staff that we could do this and we were going to try this. But once the thing was in place, it actually made life very much easier for the staff. And so we think that this is one of the very easy thing and first thing that you can do in your hotel to have actually quite a big impact. So let me maybe explain you a bit more what we mean when we say putting products only available upon request. So the products in question were all the bathroom amenities. So that's, for example, the shower caps, the cotton buds, toothbrush, toothpaste, etc. And so those products were not placed directly in the bathroom anymore. Instead, what you had was a little note explaining why these products weren't here, because the hotel was trying to reduce its plastic footprint, and how the customer could ask for them. So that was either by going at the reception or by calling the room service, and these products would be brought to them. And so those was for bathroom amenities, as I told you, but also for two products in the rooms that are milk powder and chocolate powder. And so these were replaced by fresh milk and hot chocolate that would be made by the bar, at the bar. So this actually allowed us to drastically lower the demand for these products, and by 99% for the products that were available in the rooms, and up to 50% for the products that were in the bathroom products. So of course, if you reduce the demand, of course, you're going to save some money, but you're also going to reduce dramatically the plastic consumption of your hotel. And because you save some money, and you can also, this allows you to have some better quality products, so that, as I told you, fresh milk, for example, and hot chocolate, but also maybe better quality toothbrush or whatever. And so it's a change that actually was relatively easy to implement, because of course we had to work on how we were going to communicate on this change to the customers, so that this change would be accepted. And it was accepted, and we worked together with social scientists to help us shape those messages, and you'll find some example of how to do that in the toolkit that Claire is going to present to you afterwards. And this also simplified the task of the governess and the housemaid, because they didn't have to check which amenities had been used when they were cleaning and preparing the room for the next customers. So this is actually one of the very strong quick wins, because it's easy to implement and also has quite a large impact on reducing your plastic footprint, but also reducing or doing some savings.
Thank you, Elodie. And yes, as you mentioned, there is a method, a turnkey method that we draft and we built, and we wanted to share this knowledge and all what we worked on to be able to accompany the Hotel of the Mediterranean or elsewhere to engage in this transition to zero plastic. So what we made available in this guide that I will present, and that is available on our website, is first the method that I presented earlier with all the details and tips on how to implement it. We also highlighted some vigilance points to be able to not fall on the same traps as us, but also examples that were implemented in the hotel in Marseille, some that we already talked about today, but some more. And we also had some tools at the end of the guide to really help you to get into this process. And I will show you just right now, if I may. Sorry about that. It's changing. To our website, which is beyondplasticmed.org. and you arrive on the welcome page. And here you have a little button to discover everything about this method. And you can as well have it on a platform, digital platform, where you can navigate from stages to stages and get back when you've done one, and to be a bit more interactive. But if you prefer, you can also download the PDF version really easily from our website. And here you have in the summary all the links to the different stages. So for example, we could go right away. Elodie, I think you spoke about stages earlier, and I was very interested in showing this. But let's go to the sources and resources. Those are some of the tools that I told you about. For example, on the first stage, I told you that we first diagnose all the plastic that are within the hotel. And we put at your disposal the Excel sheet we used to be able to do exactly the same and to give you a starting point. Of course, you can adjust it to what your hotel has, but this is a starting point. Yes, I think the best is to go within the guide and navigate between the different elements. You can find the results we've told you about, the different alternatives. Here you have some key messages, the quick wins and some disappointments. And I hope it will be a helpful tool to get into this process. To help the implementation of all those changes, we are planning to do some webinars as well to go a bit more further in detail and to guide you within this process. And so we have the first one, but they are in French. I don't know if there is some French speaker within the public today, but the next one in May 16 will be in English, and you just have to go on our website on the button that I suggested, and you can register here if you would like to go again in further details. And I guess that's it for me, and we can go to the Q&A session. Geneviève, I think you have your mic off.
Sorry. Thank you. So I was saying thank you, Claire, Manon, and Elodie for this very inspiring presentation. So now we will leave you the floor for questions and answers. So you can put your micro on if you wish to ask a question directly, or if you want, you can also put the question in the chat. So I don't see any question in the chat at the moment.
You can raise your hand as well. And first, I want to say thank you for listening our presentation, and I hope our English level was sufficient enough for you to understand everything.
One has, yes.
Yeah, just one question, one from a colleague of Geneviève at ECORES. But I was just wondering to what extent the Intercontinental Hotel in Marseille is willing to spread out what they've learned from the pilot to other hotels from the same group. Do you know if there's been some kind of continuation afterwards to to scale up what has been learned from the pilot?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Erwan, for this question. So yes, we mentioned the trial phase, but the optimistic results we had from it lead the Intercontinental first to let those changes and to keep them going, but as well to extend some of the alternatives to bigger sorry, I'm losing my word here, but to implement it, yeah, enlarge the scope. Thank you, Manon. To enlarge the scope of the alternatives within the hotel. But as you may know, Intercontinental is from the Intercontinental Hotel Group, which is a bigger group of hotels. And the direction is implicated in this project, and they want to replicate in some other hotel. So this is not going to stop at this trial phase, and this will continue. And we are very happy about it.
Thank you. I have a question from Veronique, who is asking, is there a list of alternative suppliers available somewhere?
Maybe Manon can answer this one.
We haven't shared them in the toolkit, I think. But yeah, happy to share some of the suppliers in France that we found. Overall, all of the benchmark was made in Europe largely. So based on where your hotel is located, yeah, we can share some supplier names that make sense for some products that you would like to see replaced or reduced.
Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, I have another question. You mentioned that there were traps in the toolkit that you help others to avoid. Can you name one of them?
I'm not sure if it's real traps, but you know, there's some alternatives that can appear very easy and without any problems. But as Manon mentioned, there is some that doesn't quite fit the standards of the hotel. So there is no alternative to this date, which is acceptable enough for the hotel, but that doesn't mean there won't be. For example, we try to replace the butter, the individual portion of butter, with block of butter in the buffet. For the moment, they didn't find a solution that were appealing enough and beautiful enough on the breakfast buffet, but they are keeping searching. So the trap I would say we could avoid is eliminating a solution or a single-use plastic to tackle. Definitely. If you don't find an easy solution right away. You have to let yourself a bit of move and a little bit of time to be able to go back to this solution. I hope that answered. Yes.
I can also share another trap to complete your response, Claire, is on the materials that are sourced, because if we take, for example, a toothbrush, we find different materials to replace the single-use plastic. There's bamboo, there's bioplastics, there's bio-sourced compostable materials, there's wood. And so we've led an entire, different environmental analysis on these different materials, and based on their location, where they're sourced, plus the types of materials, there are also some traps in which not to fall in. For example, bamboo coming from China has a lot of glues that are mixed with the bamboo originally, which it makes it very difficult to recycle. Wood sourced in France actually had intense environmental impacts, like very positive ones. It enabled to reduce by, I think, 70% the impact of the single-use plastic material initially. So that was quite interesting also to note. Bioplastics like PLA had big environmental transfers. So this was a trap not to fall in as well.
Thank you. I have another question, is how to propose water when clients are going to excursions in the area or just to the beach nearby. Usually small water bottles are proposed. It is difficult to replace them. Have you worked on that?
Yes, so we have worked on it. We haven't trialed on this particular takeaway segment because we've highlighted that the main impacts and the main volumes were mostly on the water consumed in the hotels, in the events section area, for example. So that's where we started deploying the project. But we had, in the sourcing of alternatives, identified viable solutions for this takeaway segment. So thinking of providing reusable takeaway containers for clients to take back to the hotel after their use, some single-use alternatives made of cellulose and recyclable materials. So there are solutions to replace small water bottles made of plastic, but they weren't trialed, unfortunately, within the framework of this pilot.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions? No? Okay.
Yes, there is.
Yes. Yes.
One is.
Yes, Erwan. Sorry.
Yeah. One thing I liked in the presentation was the fact that you were actually experimenting and trialing with alternative solutions. Could you let us know a bit more? How did you do it concretely? For instance, did you have for a certain amount of weeks specific rooms in which you would be testing different options and then getting the feedback from the customers? Or how did it concretely in practice happen to get validation in a way that one solution seems to be accepted by the customers?
Maybe Elodie will complete what I will say, but we were helped with social scientists to help us follow those changes. So we had some forms usually filled by the clients, and we add a section regarding especially those zero plastic transition. So within all the rooms where it was tested, there was a communication, and we worked a lot on the message that we put in this communication, because this is very important to have for the clients. And on this communication, there was a QR code, so you can scan it, and then you go to the form and you can give your advice. What the result of this is that there was a very, very small number of negative comments, and it was clearly not impactful regarding the numbers of nights spent during this trial period. The number are, if I remember correctly and approximately, it was like 15,000 nights in the hotel, and within all of this, we had 300 response to the form within the room, and without all those response, we had like 2 or 4 negative comments. So this is quite negligible. I'm not sure if it's English, but this is not as important to mention and to say that there is a negative impact of the trial phase. But I'm sure Elodie can add a little bit more to my answer.
No, I can just complete maybe on your question on whether those alternatives were only tested in a few rooms or on the whole hotel at first. So Manon was the one following on the field the deployment of all those alternatives. But the alternatives were put in place in the whole hotel, and we did not go in to ask single-handedly customers at the end of their tour what they thought about the alternatives, because of course this is a luxury hotel, so you cannot go and ask all of your customers, because this just does not fit well the standards of a luxury hotel to go ask directly whether they prefer this plastic or this other plastic or this wooden toothbrush compared to something else. And so, but we relied a lot on the feedback from the staff, because they are the one that are in the contact with the customers day to day, and they see actually what can work and what cannot work. So for example, with the butter, I think they tried it for 1 or 2 days or maybe a week, but they saw that it wasn't clean and it didn't fit the standards, so it was taken back from the duration of the test immediately. But as the other alternatives, well, they worked and they were good enough, I think, for the quality of the service and for the standards of the hotel. Well, they stayed, and at the end of the 3 months of the project, we did the whole evaluation and we took a step back, and well, the results show that we had effectively reduced plastic consumption, made some economies, and that the clients were still happy and the customers still came back to the hotel. So the hotel direction took the decision to, well, keep the project going. And I don't know, Manon, if you want to add something more, because you were more in the process, or if that's correct.
That's fine. Perfect.
Tatjana, you have a question?
Yes, I would say thank you so much for the presentation. It's a really good information, very clear. And also thank you that you advised, because I know that some of the SMEs from Moldova, they're participating now for this webinar, so they will look for sure on the website. And my question is about how can they contact you and use the methodology of evaluation, everything.
Of course. Thank you for mentioning this. Actually, I will put the contact details of BMed where we can direct you to the best solution after. We have our address mail, but you can as well contact us directly through our website. We have a contact us button where you can ask all of the questions, and we will answer the best we can. And I strongly advise the people that want to go further and to have more details to assist at the second webinar I mentioned earlier, the one on the 16th of May, which will be in English, because we will provide a bit more advice on all of this methodology and a bit more details. And we will remind as well the contact details of BMed at this occasion. But I'm writing on the chat or email address if you have any question after this. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one remaining question. How these changes impact the relationship with the providers of the hotel? Are you facing some difficulties?
So providers being suppliers, if I understood well, there was no feedback specifically from the current providers that we were aware of. But also because most of the suppliers we trialed were new ones. So we referenced them in the hotel's system. And with a few of them that the hotel had identified, we co-created a specific amenity solutions for the trial period. And also the example I showcased with the children kit. So it's always a preferred option to work closely with existing providers because it's an easy solution. But most of them that we had turned to were not very receptive to co-creating a specific solution for the hotel. So that's where we had to identify and work with new ones.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for all these insight and interesting aspect of the project. The conference will soon be available on the Center website on the circulartourism.eu. And if you are eager to learn more about the other key aspects of circular economy in the tourism sector, do not hesitate to access the different resources that are available as well on the website. So I'm going to stop the presentation and thank you all again for attending and wish you a nice day.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you very
everybody.
much.
Thank you so much. Have a
Bye.
great day.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice day.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye bye.